If we look at India from the Himalayas to the southern coast, to God's own country, Kerala, to the beaches of Goa, unexplored beaches, underdeveloped beaches on the other side, on the Bay of Bengal, to the tea tourism, to the spiritual tourism, to the medical tourism, to the destination weddings. I mean, you name it and we have it all.
We have luxury tourism and palace tourism like you can have nowhere else in the world.
There is one brand from India which has made it on the global stage. I don't know if you're aware that Taj has been rated world's strongest hotel brand for 4 out of the last 5 years. Is it good for the country? And is it, the second one is it good for the community and business? And I think that's how we would try to tell the story of Lakshadweep. Build the soft power of the new India which has emerged in the last 10 years so that the incredible India converts itself into an inevitable India.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the India Story, which, as you know, is the program that tries to put together ideas on how we can make India much, much better. How do we fix all the problems that we have? And it's a great pleasure to have with us Puneet Chhatwal, who's obviously, we all know him as the Managing Director and CEO of the Indian Hotels Company, which is the Taj Group, and many, many other brands that you put forward. You're the architect of one of the biggest turnaround success stories that we have seen in corporate India. But I'm also here to talk to you about Indian tourism, because the way you turned around the Indian hotels chain, tourism, why does India underperform in tourism, and how can we make it into a top tourism destination? That, Mr. Chhatwal, is what we're hoping to hear from you.
Thank you for having me. Tourism is that one important lever which has not yet been used to the potential that it has. Why tourism is important, firstly, is tourism creates culture. The more you travel, the higher is the awareness, the higher is the tolerance level for different cultures, different languages, different beliefs in your own country. Second, it's important because you showcase your country to the world, which is one of the oldest civilizations in the world. So we have a lot to offer, but it seems to remain the best kept secret. And finally, after the soft power of your brand India has been created, the most important, the demographic dividend that India has could benefit significantly from the largest multiplicator of jobs, which is tourism and hospitality. As per WTTC, which is World Travel and Tourism Council, 1 out of every 4 new jobs created in the world come from this sector. But more importantly, every job creates so many other jobs. For example, in a hotel, you have vegetable suppliers, you have milk suppliers, you have meat suppliers, you have automobile services, you have airport reps. So many other jobs get created which are not necessarily in the hotel itself, but in the larger ecosystem that is needed to service this sector. So I think all in all, this is a very important lever that is there, and how it can be optimize. I mean, I have those 4-5 key points, but we get to that.
We would like to draw up with you over the course of the next 40-45 minutes a blueprint, a 5-6 agenda blueprint. You are also the chairman, by the way, of CII's Travel and Tourism Council. So you're the person who's, from an industry point of view, the person who's like there with that agenda saying, how do we fix it? And I want to try and get an agenda, a 5-point agenda item by the time we are done with this. But just the benefits that you're talking about, why it's so important to think about tourism. You spoke about employment. It's a massive employment generator. Foreign exchange earnings, the amount of we are in a foreign exchange crisis, so it seems these days. If you actually had lots of tourists coming, they'd all be getting dollars in. But here you have a country, Mr. Chhatwal, which is the size, the scale of India, the raw, the culture, the beauty, the wildlife sanctuaries, still palaces. If you look at the number of tourist arrivals, foreign tourists is probably less than 10 million right now, because there are lots of Indians, of NRIs, or people of Indian origin who come back. Less than 10 million?
Absolutely. Even lesser, because a lot of Indian diaspora comes in on foreign, passports with an OCI. So I think it's very less, which means it's a big opportunity. Paris gets 25 million. tourist as a city alone. So I think if we look at India from the Himalayas to the southern coast to God's own country, Kerala, to the beaches of Goa, unexplored beaches, underdeveloped beaches on the other side, on the Bay of Bengal, to the tea tourism, to the spiritual tourism, to the medical tourism, to the destination weddings. I mean, you name it, and we have it all. And this can be the one, as I said before, one big opportunity that we are sitting on that can get us not just foreign exchange, but build the soft power of the new India, which has emerged in the last 10 years and getting into those top five, top 10 countries of the world.
When you're talking about soft power, though, and I have to say this, what you were saying about appreciating culture, appreciating what you have, these days some people would say, and I'm asking you this question because before you came back to craft the turnaround story of the Taj Group, you spent a lot of your time as managing hotels and looking after hospitality sector in Europe, which is where you built your career. These days there's a lot you see on social media and other places about the way Indian tourists are behaving overseas. They're out there. The garba is one thing, grabbing things from the buffet. Swiss hotels having to put up these things saying that Indian tourists, please don't take everything on the buffet table. Did you experience a lot of that?
Not really. I mean, I did experience a bit of, vegetarian food and having your own cooks travel with you in a group. That was something common, but I have not come across these kind of challenges. I've had the fortune of running a hotel company which also had hotels in Switzerland, besides, Germany and Holland and Egypt, etc. So I think there are all kinds of people all over the world, and we just have more people. So maybe we are more in the public eye because the population of India is so large, and the number of people traveling from India is also increasing by leaps and bounds every day. So maybe some unfortunate incidents happen, and I'm not trying to be diplomatic while saying so. This actually never happened in my 3 decades of stay in Europe.
These days, when you travel, I mean, I've also seen it. Sometimes it's when there are large groups going. What you said about appreciating the culture which there is in the rest of the world. If you're going to a place where there's a quiet zone, you would maybe respect that. And I think when we as Indians travel as individuals, we sometimes heed that. When we are in a group, we feel कि भाई हम लोग जो दिल्ली में करते थे या जो अहमदाबाद में करते थे यहाँ भी करेंगे.
As I said, I have not come across, but I've come across something very funny, which I'll tell you. I know of a family, and they run a hotel in Interlaken called the Hotel Bosit. And one of my mentors was born in that hotel. So it is his brother's family that runs that place. So one day, the brother's wife asked me, may I ask you something if you would not feel bad? I said, yes, please go ahead. And she said, I love Indian guests when they come. They are very friendly. We sit down with them, we chat with them. And, they like nature, they like to go and explore things. But one thing I have never understood. I said, what is that? She said, we have not even finished breakfast. They're talking, lunch mein kya khayenge? The lunch has not come, but they're already talking about next day in the lunch what they will have. So is there something that we need to know that happened in India, that people are so fixated on the meals and what they're going to eat? So that's the only thing I heard, which was not negative. It was meant in a
Fine. There's nothing
positive way.
wrong. If you like food and you want good food, we have very good quality food in India. By the way, that's one of the highlights we should
That's the highlights. Yeah, food tourism is an opportunity, but importantly, this comes from our upbringing in joint families, where the elderly lady or person in the house would say, अच्छा थोड़ा चना भिगा के रख देना, या थोड़ा राजमा, कल राजमा खाएंगे या परसों चने खाएंगे. So that is how it used to happen, and I think that became a part of our culture. But that's as good as it got in terms of getting some kind of a feedback. I never had any negative feedback.
That's actually good to hear because, you wonder sometimes. There's this incident in Japan right now where an Indian lady was accused of shoplifting. Now, there'll always be stray occasions when that happens. But you sometimes worry whether the things that bother us so much in India, like people just throwing garbage out on the side of the road or, littering and all of that, you're saying you didn't experience that much outside.
I actually was, always amazed. The same people may do that in India, but they don't do that in Switzerland. They wait for, the pedestrian light to turn green before crossing the road. It's not like here you just give a hand and you say, okay, car, stop, I'm like moving on. I saw very little of it, or maybe I was living in a very different kind of zone that I did not experience much. But there are heavy punishments that come with it. I mean, Switzerland, the rules for the locals are as tough as they are for foreigners. So, same thing in Singapore. I've not seen anything like that in Singapore happening either.
The reason why I think this behavioral thing is good to fix, I'm trying to work my way up to those 5 agenda points or whatever they are, because this is probably one of the biggest things that you must be hearing, that when you come to India, you could have the most beautiful hotels in the world. And I genuinely believe this, that when you come into one of the Indian hotels, and not just Indian hotels, but any Indian, any of the big brands, they're as beautiful as anything else. You step out, you'll suddenly encounter garbage, you'll encounter litter, you'll encounter filth. You must be hearing that from your guests. Why
That,
does that happen here?
yeah, not really, because our guests don't actually go out walking on the road like they would do in Europe. So maybe because of the weather conditions, maybe it's monsoon, you can't walk that easily. Maybe it is extreme heat. So, but it is the truth. What you've just now said is absolutely the truth. We have it. We are at the moment seated in Taj Mahal Palace in Kolaba, and opposite us is Gateway of India. Between the Taj Hotel entrance and Gateway of India, there could be a lot of unwanted things on the street and a lot of crowd and somebody pushing each other to get through. So this part is there. I think it has to improve. It will improve as the nation progresses, as our growth progresses, as our education levels progress. I think it will improve, but it's a very large number to cover.
So that may be one of the things that we have to look at, individual tourism zones, and make sure that those are, that was the concept of that 50 place, that you can't clean up the whole of the country or enforce a certain, fix every single corner of the country, but maybe around the Gateway of India or around the Taj and around specific places.
No,
You
I think the government has also done certain good campaigns. The tourism sector has taken it up more recently. The Swachh Bharat, cleaning of the monuments, maintaining those. Recently, IATO, the Indian Association of Tour Operators, took on a project. So I think a lot of this happens. And actually, I must tell you this, that most of the hotel companies in India, the large ones, they actually maintain the quality of the road, the cleanliness between the hotel till the monument. Now, we can't guarantee for the entire city, but it would be interesting for you to know that all the Taj properties, whether in Goa or the Fish Cove in Chennai, Mahabalipuram, we maintain the cleanliness of the beaches. It's a part of our CSR activity. It's very well documented. It's available as videos also on the social media, and it's a daily activity. It's not like done once a month. So every day we do that, and I'm seeing that even coming in schools. I chair a school, an international school in Mumbai. The kids go to clean the beach areas in Mumbai itself. So I think it's a lot of that awareness is being built. But as I said before, we have a lot to catch up on. It's not going to be over in a year or 2 years. It's a journey which has commenced, but may take another 5, 10 years to get there.
So as I try and find solutions, so let's just stick with this cleanliness, garbage, hygiene point, because that is a one thing that many people complain about. You're correctly saying that individual society companies and others do take a lot of that. In Delhi, for example, there and many other monuments now have private sector companies that come, take care of them, clean them up, put toilets and the others. Government also does, the Swachh Bharat campaign. Do you think there's a requirement for a sustained campaign around it to spread the message, which will also help elsewhere? For example, in Nepal, we just had this scene where a person throwing garbage actually had locals coming to him and saying, "Why are you throwing garbage out here?" And that family was stopped. As an Indian, it wasn't good to see that. Why is it happening? But maybe you need that sort of a campaign everywhere in the country, in this country, because then they won't do it abroad either.
Well, you need to build a bridge in the short term, but you need to have also a long-term policy. And the long term can only come through education, awareness, culture, and the consistent things, the small things you do in the short term, which become the part of that long-term strategy. So I'm quite optimistic about the way, 10 years ago, if you had said India will be one of the fastest growing countries, India will have a GDP growth of X, who would have believed it? But similarly, if we say today, in 10 years from now, we would be a much cleaner country with a much higher regard for the environment, etc., I think it will happen. Most recently, a few days ago, we heard in the news the first hydrogen-driven train between Sonipat and I'm forgetting I think Jeend and Sonipat. Uh, I think all that is happening, but look at the expanse of the country, look at the population of the country. So that's why it is a journey. And the destination will not be there next year or in a 2 years' time, but definitely 5 to 10 years is the time period I think we'll get there.
You would not believe it. If you would come to me 10 years or 15 years ago and said India would have some of the best airports in the world, I would have laughed at you. 20, 30 years ago, if somebody had said that you would have had 50 world-class hotels in India, people may well have laughed at you, right? If somebody had said that Taj Hotel would be making as many profits 10 years ago, people would have laughed at you. So infrastructure, do you think is one area where we are moving in the right direction or no?
Absolutely. The doubling of the airports, the renaissance of the train stations, the building of the highways. I mean, look at Delhi, Jaipur, Jaipur, Savai Madhopur, Lucknow, Agra. I've done some of these. Delhi, Agra. I had not done this in many, many decades, and I wouldn't have believed what I saw. I mean, okay, the speed limit is a different issue, but the Jaipur Savai Madhopur, with the kind of traffic it has, that means hardly any traffic. It could be as good as a German autobahn. So I think a lot has happened that has helped in the connectivity. A lot is happening, but if we could somehow expedite it further in getting more and more cities connected, in building more and more roads, more and more Vande Bharat trains, and faster introduction of the bullet trains, etc., I think it will be a very different India that we know today versus in 10 years from now.
When you as the CEO of the Taj Group are looking at the various destinations, are you sometimes feeling that, well, this may be exceeding its carrying capacity? Is that something which you think is a real problem? You may not be able to take too many tourists to some of the more remote places.
Well, there are two ways of looking at it. When you are building new, it has to be built on the basis of responsible and sustainable tourism. But when you are acquiring something existing, then it's already there. So you make sure that you kind of control the supply. So if we look at, let's say, a sector Rishikesh to Haridwar, so we have the Taj in Rishikesh, which is built new. On the way, we have Anand Kashi, which was always existing, and it was, rebranded as Anand Kashi. So very nice boutique property on the Ganges. So we did not add. And the same thing in Haridwar, we had the Pilibhit House and now another small property next to it called the Ganga Mahal. They were always there. So they have been, upgraded, reimagined, and introduced as one of our brands. And that's how we cover. We create a new infrastructure for hospitality. We create new sources of income for ourselves, new sources of demand for the country because these destinations were not that easy to get to. And we get the government help because there is the Jolly Grant Airport where you can land into. And there are these nice roads which take you in either direction, whether you go in the direction of Haridwar or you go in the direction of Rishikesh.
So that, I think, partly also answers the question that those places make sense because there is connectivity and there are roads. If you see a lot of the images that come up summer after summer, again, these images are all over social media. You've got these, 10-kilometer, 15-kilometer long, traffic jams leading up to places like, Badrinath, Kedarnath, places like that. If you look at it, the traffic jams, they are cluttered. Place like Sikkim, such a beautiful place, but there have been, hour-long traffic jams leading up there. Is it that we have to keep an eye on how many people right now the infrastructure can only support so many tourists? So don't try and have more tourists than that. Is that one of the ways to look at it?
Not just tourists. Don't try to approve of projects if the local place cannot support having those projects. I think the approval process more and more has to be driven by what that community, what that marketplace, what that region can sustain. So otherwise, you're confronted with all the environmental challenges. That's, I think, beyond one sector to do it. That's where we need a policy intervention in a very different way. And I'm glad you mentioned Sikkim. Going from Bagdogra to Gangtok could be a very nice drive, but if there are landslides, the road is shut, it can also be a nightmare. I've been through that. But going from Bagdogra to Kurseong, where we have the Taj Chia Kutir, uh, is now only like 35 minutes, the earliest possible. And if you are very unlucky, it gets to 45 minutes. It's a beautiful drive. So I think we need to do both because Sikkim is a great destination. It's a very important part of the Northeast. We are very close to the China border. There are very nice monasteries. A lot can be done, but in order to do that, we need to fix the infrastructure there. And I think there is a plan to tie up Gangtok through another road on the top, coming not from Bagdogra, but from the other side of Bagdogra.
It's interesting to hear you say that, and I'm sure when you're also looking at your expansion plans, you must be keeping future infrastructure about what is about to happen in those areas in mind. For example, I think you're going into Lakshadweep, you're looking at more and more places in the northeast. Andamans, there's a beautiful Taj. I'm sure you're looking at other places in the Andaman. These are world-class destinations once the infrastructure comes up. Would that be a fair way of looking at it?
Absolutely fair way of looking at it. The only question is what comes first. The infrastructure comes first in an ideal world, and then the hotels follow. So, what I've learned from my forefathers at the Taj is I think Taj went first and did 52 years ago the Taj Fort Aguada, and that's what put Goa on the map. We went first and did Havelock in Andamans, and we created a lot of hotel supply in Kerala. We had the first mover advantage, and now we are doing it in Lakshadweep. But if we keep waiting for the connectivity, maybe the destination stays the way it is for the next few decades. So I think the need of the hour is somebody has to move first. And when we were asked to participate in that tender for Lakshadweep, we did that because it's a part of the ethos of Tata's also in terms of nation building, something which we have always done well. And why should we stop doing something which has worked very well for the country and for the group? It reminds me. I read it. I never experienced Mr. J.R.D. Tata. They said, "How do you take decisions?" So here I would ask two questions: Is it good for the country? And the second one is it good for the community and business? If it ticks both the boxes, the decision is a fait accompli. And I think that's how we would try to tell the story of Lakshadweep.
So I'm very tempted to ask you, in addition to Lakshadweep, which are the other areas that you're really looking at when you look at the map of India and saying, such a beautiful place, we should try and be first movers there?
Well,
Or maybe you're already doing it. You're already
we
starting
have
projects.
already done so much. If we look at our homestay brand, the Ama, and with the Taj, with all our other brands today, it would be fair to say that if you look at the first village when you enter India from absolute northeast, that is Tawang. We have a Vivanta in Tawang. If you go to the southernmost tip, in Kerala, we have hotels there. If you go to the north, as I said, Rishikesh, now we are exploring projects all the way up into Tehri. We have hotels in Srinagar and we are building in Pahalgam, especially Pahalgam, we are very excited about. We're looking into Gulmarg. In the heart of India in Madhya Pradesh, we have had the safaris, and very recently, 4 or 5 years ago, we built a very nice Taj in the capital city of Bhopal, and we are looking at another project in Bhopal. So a lot of that is happening. Last week I was in Chhattisgarh. We are looking at Raipur in a big way, but not just Raipur. Destinations which fascinated me, like Chitrakoot. I had no clue. honestly, that we have such beautiful waterfalls, which are called the Niagara of Asia. So there is a lot that is being done, is being explored, and will get done, and a lot of new destinations. I I will give you the number. We, as Indian Hotels Company, IHCL, today are represented in almost 250 locations in India. So I think nobody brings India forward on the map the way we do, and we are very happy and proud to say that.
I'm going to pause my discussion on the broader fixing of tourism across India to just go into that a little bit further, because one of the reasons which may have helped you in doing this is a very key decision that you took. I think moving away from just being a Taj brand company to saying let's have a multiplicity of brands, right? Vivanta, then you've got Ginger, multiple price points, therefore. Then you have Ama, you have homestays, you're going into carriages, you're going, so then, and there are Amant, and there's health. Is that enabling you to expand into into regions that therefore you would not have been able to go easily?
Absolutely. You can't build a Taj in every city of India. The economics would never work. So at some point, you also have to be, sustainable and profitable business. And not everybody feels comfortable going into Taj. And I actually learned it growing up in Delhi. I thought the DDA had done a great job in coming with the LIG flats and a MIG flats and a self-financing and a Janta flats. They had really categorized and put people into different, their ability to pay, their ability to afford kind of brackets. And it served the needs and wants of all kind of customers. Same is the case with hospitality. When we were growing up, we went to our uncle's or our aunt's house on a holiday, and the parents got something called a leave travel concession. Those days are over, they're gone. Nobody goes to anybody's house. And even when people, Indian diaspora is coming from outside of India to spend a holiday, they book a hotel and call everybody there. And that's how the families meet today. But that also means there is an opportunity to create different price segments for different customer touch points, and nothing is more heterogeneous as a country than India is, and that is what gave us the opportunity. Some of those ideas were there. It would be fair to say Ginger was conceived actually more like 1999 2000. The first hotel opened in 2003 or 4. But even in that segment, the aspiration of the customers changed. Nobody wanted to be put into a bracket of 999 rupees. So we just reimagined Ginger, relaunched Ginger. Today it's one of our, a great success story that we have in our brandscape. Same as Vivanta and Gateway. They were first launched in 2003 or 4. But then a lot of brand confusion happened because started putting the TGH was supposed to be the Gateway Hotel, and India being India and people being very innovative, they changed the Gateway to Taj Gateway Hotel. And unfortunately or fortunately, at that time we added Vivanta by Taj, so it became either Vivanta by Taj or Taj Vivanta. So there was a lot of
Now you're again
confusion,
confused as to which is the Taj.
which is the Taj. So I think we cleaned that up, and it's worked very well for us. Some of those brands are still in the growth phase, so I think it'll take another couple of years. But in a couple of years, our major brands will, each of them will have minimum of 50 hotels in operation on the traditional front, that is the Vivanta or the Gateway. The Claridges as a collection will be small boutique hotels. I don't expect that to grow beyond 10. But Ginger very soon will be a 300 hotels portfolio. Maximum 18 months from now, I think Ginger will be a 300 hotels portfolio.
What you said about different price points is actually very interesting, because one of the criticisms you often hear tourists saying is that, oh, hotels in India are overpriced and are very expensive. That's one criticism I've never been entirely 100% convinced about, because you can get decent hotels at various price points, which are actually very competitive. Maybe Thailand will outdo India, or some places in Vietnam will outdo India. But for most of the world, do you think hotels are fairly competitive?
I don't know. Do you mean, they are people find it expensive,
Expensive. You'll always hear
domestic
people,
or international.
international tourists or domestic tourists, you'll have them saying that, oh, it's cheaper to go to Thailand or it's cheaper to go to Vietnam than it is to stay in a hotel in India. It's a criticism you often hear. I'm not sure how valid it is, but it's a criticism you often hear.
It is valid to a great point, but it's not just the hotels. So I think we limit it to hotels. Um, when I was living in Europe, many times in certain pockets of the year, I would say Christmas, New Year, which we call very high season, it is cheaper and better value to have a holiday in Thailand, for example. But in the same month, let's say if you did a holiday between 1st to 10th of December, India is very competitive. So our dollar pricing actually has not changed in the last 20 years. The problem is the dollar keeps getting more expensive. So in Indian rupees, yes, it has been changing, it has been increasing, and rightly so. Because, as I said, at the end of the day, hotels also have to make money. It's another form of economic activity. It's a very important part of infrastructure. And you can't make money with the current costs if the hotel rates had stayed on the way they were 10, 15 years ago.
But on the price competitiveness part, look behind one of the greatest hotels in the world, right? This is the Taj Palace in Mumbai. If you look at your website, you could get a room in one of the tower rooms out here. You could get it for what, 140 US dollars? I mean, that's. If you told somebody I'm going to go to Europe and stay in one of the best hotels in Europe for $140, they'd laugh at you. Same is true in America. And then, of course, the Gingers and the Vivantas and the others are priced even lower than that. So that's why I'm wondering
Thank
about
you.
the
Thank you
pricing.
for saying that. Keep going on. I like that.
No, man,
we
I'm
need we
arguing.
need supporters because everybody thinks it's expensive, and I just don't get it. Because the same Taj on the Fifth Avenue in New York does an average rate of almost $1,000. That's what we hope to finish this year at the pier in New York. The same Taj Buckingham Gate does in London does an average rate north of 650 pounds. The St. James does around 300, but the Buckingham Gate is mostly, the residential apartment kind of offering. And no one complains. But in India, if we have 140, 180, $200, then they say the rates are very expensive because that cultural background that we have had is always been to put pressure on hotels to put down the rates. I think more important is to look at the entire ecosystem of the flights, the airport taxes, the visas, the excise duties, all the kind of monies we pay. I gave my favorite example of Taj Mahal Hotel in Delhi. Taj Mansingh this year would have paid 130 crores just in license fees. If I add 18% GST to it, it comes to another 70 plus crores on the revenue. Then if I add excise, etc., etc., etc. So I think the rate is a function of a lot of other costs that go into it. What we charge the customer is not all coming into the hotel P&L only. So I think we can do better. Definitely we can do better, but we have to look at the holistic approach to it.
Do you think it would be fair to say, therefore, that when you are looking at the competitiveness of the Indian market vis-a-vis the competitors, at the end of the day, that's what matters, right? That, okay, I'm going to go to India or I'm going to go to Thailand or Vietnam or, some other country. It is actually the package that you should be looking at. There's a hotel fee, but what you also have to factor in is my air ticket to fly to Goa was 6,000 rupees. I'm now going to pay 4,000 rupees to the taxi operator to take me. I'm landing in Mumbai, in Navi Mumbai, the new fancy airport that there is. I'm going to pay 5,000 rupees and wait for 45 minutes or an hour to get a taxi to bring me into Mumbai. That is what adds to the cost.
Absolutely, that's what I said. The entire ecosystem is what one has to look at. Like we say, ease of doing business, the ease of travel, the last mile connectivity, whatever you want to call it. I think there are a lot of components that go into it. I think I have always gone on record and said, hospitality sector was shut down during COVID. But all these statutory obligations were there and we paid all of those. We didn't get any kind of relief. Your bar is shut, that's fine, but you still have to pay excise duty. Your hotel is shut, but you still have to pay license fees. So I think we did all of that. So that also makes things very expensive. So I think the devil is always in the detail. We need to work it out. In many situations, we have got a lot of nice meetings, a good hearing, and at the moment I have to say we have a tourism minister who comes from the sector. He understands really the pain points of hospitality, so it's relatively a easier discussion that we can have with him.
One of the points and a radical agenda item that is sometimes suggested is, let's be clear in our positioning. You don't necessarily have to position yourself as saying we are the cheapest destination. That's a positioning. We're the cheapest destination for you to go to. But there are other positionings which may be better, which may actually be, we have luxury tourism and palace tourism like you can have nowhere else in the world. You can have health and wellness tourism and Ayurveda in Kerala, that circuit, spirituality circuit, the Buddha circuit and things like that. Culture circuit, wildlife circuit. You could have these circuits and that becomes the branding of Incredible India, not just this is the cheapest place to come to.
Absolutely, I think you put it across very well. I think that Incredible India will make tourism as a very important lever, so it becomes inevitable India, where you have to go to if you want all this um, in one country. So you can go to Vietnam once, you can go to Thailand beaches once, twice, thrice, but what do you do after that? Whereas you can do India at least 6, 8, 10, 12 times, and that is when you would have actually seen India. And it's very fascinating. You could go to Africa in the in the lodges of the safaris and all. They're very expensive. So there is a huge opportunity for us to leverage the safari landscape that we have. We're doing quite well with our hotels in Ranthambore or the Taj Safaris in Madhya Pradesh. But there is so much more that can be done. There is so much more infrastructure that can be built. And what we can do, we are trying to contribute. But as I mentioned, there is a huge opportunity. Food tourism. I mean, every 50 or 100 kilometers, your food changes in India. And it's as fascinating as it can be. There are destinations in the world where people just go to have meals. I mean, I think of Spain, one of my favorites is San Sebastian. It has the highest number of Michelin star restaurants. You get the best food and wine out there. You go to France to celebrate, every year the Beaujolais, when it comes as a Beaujolais Nouveau, it's a celebration. So I think, I'm not saying we should turn India into a wine and that kind of
But
country,
you could have a food circuit, which is.
but we also have a wine circuit. Look at Nasik. I mean, the way Nasik is progressed, there is, of course, Shirdi very close by. So you have spiritual, but you also have wine tourism, and India is becoming competitive in its wine growing abilities.
So, that's the interesting part about that is that sometimes India also gets there's a fair rap that India gets a lot of the time, and sometimes it's an unfair rap. And the unfair rap happens, you sometimes have people coming in, travel influencers, making these videos and saying, oh, look how bad this is, look how dirty it is. They're staying in places that are $8 or $9, and they're saying, oh, it's not very fancy and it's not very good. So, to some extent, fine, that's not what your positioning is. Our $8 rooms are not great. Don't come here if you want to stay in an $8 room. Maybe that's an active part of the messaging that goes out.
Absolutely, and many times when good message comes, we should try to help it make viral. One of my favorite examples here is Philipp Ackermann, the outgoing German ambassador to India. You know how he collected the embassy people, went to Chandni Chowk at like 6 a.m. and they all started dancing on Natu Natu. I mean, it got a lot of views, but maybe we could have helped it get 5 times more views or 10 times more views than it got. I think it was absolutely fascinating, dressed in Indian kurta pajama and others in Indian dresses, and singing and dancing at 6 a.m. Natu Natu.
Yeah, that's an absolutely great thing. But one moving down the list to the last couple of items, this is actually a very crucial item. So it's not saving the the most serious issue for the last sort of a thing. Safety, you know, safety of tourists, women tourists. Even if there's one, two, three incidents, it immediately creates a massive backlash. I'm sure you, running one of India's largest hotel chains, would be very worried about that. A single incident or two incidents can change the perception around traveling to India for years altogether. What How do you think that can be handled? And sometimes you have female tourists complaining about harassment in public, or people coming in wanting to take pictures of them. Whether it's innocent or mischievous is a different point, but those again create a certain image of an unsafe place to come. People will not go and visit a country if they think it's unsafe.
That is true. I think some of these things have to be handled by the government, law and order, and kind of zero tolerance on any kind of inappropriate behavior. But more importantly, I think the way the organizations and conglomerates in India are evolving, let's say Tata Group. Tata Group safety is the highest priority. All our board meetings commence with a report on safety and security. So all the Tata Group companies, including our own. So I think safety cannot be just another issue in inverted commas. Safety has to be seen as a way of life. And it's not just the safety of people visiting, it's the safety of your own associates, safety of the people working in a workplace. And there we make no compromise. And that is how, as they say, charity begins at home, safety also begins at home. If your people are not safe, how will you create an environment of safety for your customers or for your visitors?
Right. Mr. Chatwal, I think we've been making a fairly long list of possible action items. One more is here on my list. I wonder if you feel it also, which is the visa process, right? Whether it's an e-visa or any other visa, I know there's a lot of pressure coming that can we make that entire e-visa process a little simpler. You should have a front door that's open if you want to invite people in, right? And that right now that door is somewhat difficult to get through.
I I think some work has been done. It's not that it's nothing has been done. Work on e-visas have been done. The process when you arrive, sometimes with computers hanging, makes it a very tiring, kind of an exercise because you've come after a long flight. So some of those technological challenges have to be overcome. But your biometrics, etc., everything is working, including your Digi Yatra, etc. So a lot of improvements have happened, but I think given the safety which we just touched upon, given the security thing we touched upon, it's not easy for India because there is constant threat of terrorism. So
Yes.
ultimately, if we did one and lost out on the other, it would not work long term. So I think finding that right
I think it's
balance,
just a question of fixing the website, I think, which they're working on. So hopefully they will be able to fix it soon. So,
which
Mr.
is technology, that's what I mentioned. The technological part is, it hangs
All right.
sometimes.
Well, Mr. Charan, I'm going to get you to sum all of this up into a 5-point agenda. But before I do that, I just want to briefly just touch on your personal journey. Now, you took over as the CEO of the Indian Hotel, company at a time when what there'd been 6-7 years of losses. I think it's been 16 quarters of record profits, and every quarter is a record profits. It's what, a 34% EBITDA ratio, which is ahead of it. What would you, what do you think that journey has been really about for you? What were the main levers?
Well, there are many. I think most important is to have an aspiration. That's why we called it initially Aspiration 2022. When the hurdles came, we called it a reset. Then we want to fly, so we called it
Hurdle was COVID, basically.
COVID.
Because you'd already turned it around fairly fast, and then
Fairly
COVID came,
fast,
and
yeah.
again you went into
Correct.
losses.
So we had 9 good quarters, then came COVID, then we had 6 bad quarters, but then thereafter it's not been looking back. We had Avan 2025, and then we said that's not good enough. Now we have had aspiration and Avan, now we have to do acceleration, and we said it's accelerate 2030. So, what does this mean? Number one, you have a goal. The goal is not easy. So, but each time that helps you to strive for more. And if you have a good team, that's number two, which is all working in one direction, then you not only achieve the goal, you overachieve the goal, or you achieve the goal in a shorter period of time that you had guided for. Number three, never forget your enablers and your people. As I said before, is the people who make the business. We are customer facing, and our people is our biggest asset. We are a bit blessed on number four that we have a lot of iconic assets in great locations. We're going to just celebrate our 125th AGM with 123 years of the Taj where we are seated in. So that is been a great enabler with having these iconic assets. And last not least, we belong to a group which gives you such a platform to perform that it's not easy to get elsewhere in the world. If we have one competitive advantage is of that one Tata Group.
That's fantastic. Well, you're just opening a hotel in Frankfurt. So, till now, a lot of your focus has been India, right? Unlike a earlier era where there was a lot of blue in Sydney and, Pierre, and a lot of diversification was happening. You focused a lot on India, but I think Frankfurt hotel is opening soon. So, are you looking at India or increasingly taking the Taj global again?
We opened actually at the Kruger National Park a lodge. Another two will be opening there in the next 12 months. And Frankfurt also opened yesterday. See, important is there is one brand from India which has made it on the global stage. I don't know if you're aware that Taj has been rated world's strongest hotel brand for 4 out of the last 5 years. India's strongest brand across all sectors by Brand Finance. And we are awaiting the report for this year for both India and for the world. If you want to maintain your competitive positioning, then you have to keep doing things. You can't just, do anything and expect to stay in that race in the top five hotel brands in the world. So, staying relevant by doing opportunistic growth on a capital light model and only with Taj is a part of our strategy, has always been. We have quietly opened without making big noise. So we actually opened recently two new hotels also in Bhutan. And we are under development with a couple in Saudi, with a couple in Bahrain, another one in Sri Lanka. So a lot is happening in and around India, and there will be selective growth opportunities, hopefully, very soon in Singapore, Bangkok, Switzerland. These are areas where Taj must be present.
So you are maintaining that global.
We maintain that. The only difference is
It's asset light.
it's asset light.
Right. We've spent a lot of this podcast talking about foreign tourists, but when you look at your future here in India, is it the overseas tourists you're thinking of, or you're saying, look, 95% is going to be the domestic tourists, and that's what you should think about?
I would not limit our business just to tourism because a lot of business happens because of mid-scale, large-scale business houses. And it would be fair to say if you take out some 8 or 10 destinations in the world, like a Paris or like south of Spain, most of your overnights that happen in the hotels are domestic. Let's say Germany. 70 to 80% of overnights spent by people in the hotels is all domestic. 30% is international, and of that 30%, almost 80%, that means 25% of the total, is all related to international trade fairs. So it's not really the foreign tourists that that fill your feet in sheets or heads in beds, whatever you want to call it. It's really your domestic strength. So the domestic has to be there. The foreigners on a larger pie could help you earn foreign exchange and build what I say the soft power of the brand India.
All right. So, final question, Mr. Chhatwal. If I was to give you a blank sheet of paper, as soon as we walk out of this, Prime Minister Modi calls you and says, Puneet Chhatwal, here is a blank sheet of paper. 5 agenda items to really transform tourism in India. What would those be?
Well, we have always had a 3-point agenda which we put forward. Is even simpler. That is, at the center level, one has to grant infrastructure status without any limitations, which were put almost 12, 14 years ago or so. because that helps not the Taj. Taj has no intention of taking loans and moratoriums, etc. It will bring in capital because you have better terms and conditions for getting a loan for building a hotel. So infrastructure status is important, especially when we're doing so much on infrastructure. It will just go hand in hand, whether at the new airports or the new train stations or the new highways. Number two is the industry status, because hospitality is the highest taxed sector. If we get the industry status, it also becomes equally competitive like other commercial real estate. And then you can have, again, more investments coming into the sector. Finally, something you said, and which I experienced living in Europe, was the campaign of Incredible India. I think if we have all those possibilities, like spiritual tourism, like food tourism, like medical tourism, I think we need to market it. We need to have a strong marketing budget for at least 3 to 5 years with a clear roadmap where we want to take this Incredible India campaign 2.0 or 3.0 so that the Incredible India converts itself into an inevitable India.
Infrastructure status, therefore, industry status, a proper marketing and a branding campaign. And if I may, on your behalf, perhaps add two of those things that we were discussing earlier in the program. Fixing the last mile and the infrastructure around major Indian tourism destinations, would that also be perhaps one of the items? Focus on safety. Are we missing anything else out?
Yeah, I think there is certain things where we can get creative and create. I mean, you mentioned Buddhist tourism at some point of time under spiritual. Maybe it is very time consuming to wait for the rest of the infrastructure to come into Buddhist circuits. Maybe there are certain circuits in India which could be serviced with luxury trains. I mean, I'm just giving an example how we can get innovative. There's certain which can be done through cruises, river cruises, etc. So you kind of, gain momentum and time till the rest comes in.
I think that's a fantastic way to end this. It'll take obviously time to fix the entire country and say, oh, every single square meter of India is perfect for tourism. Create those micro destinations and those micro experiences. Each one of them is perhaps what an entire country has to offer and why people go there. And if you have 20, 30 of them, it makes India a great tourist destination.
Well, thank you for all these nice lobbying on our part. I thought I was doing it alone, but I found a great partner in you.
But the idea is to find ideas of how to accelerate change in India, which is what the purpose of this is. I think we've come up with great ideas. Let's hope that we can share them, and let's hope many of them are acted upon.
Thank you.
Mr. Chhatwal,
Thank
thank
you
you so much for
Mr.
joining us on
Chandra.
the India
Thank
Story.
you. Thank you.